you go. Hey, your toe was in the line. That's why you missed. You never miss.
Toe in the line.
Just roll all the way. I'll find you. Oh my God. Woo. Hey, I'm in coverage, yo. With everybody.
You know how much Luka has to hate the Suns for him to be in coverage all the way, yo?
A whole lot. A whole lot.
Welcome, everybody, here to Basketball Passport. I am Anthony Irwin, joined on this fine Sunday evening-ish, our time, late afternoon-ish on the West Coast, where the Lakers just beat the Phoenix Suns. We'll be talking about that game. We'll be talking about Mike Budenholzer and the seat potentially getting a little warm under him. Another coach complained about having to coach against not only the Oklahoma City Thunder, but also the referees in that game, and what that might have to say about Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's propensity for free throws. We might be having a Tom Thibodeau versus Mikal Bridges feud kicking up, so that's kind of fun to think about as well. So we'll talk about all that stuff, as well as a trip that Leigh is getting ready to make out to Hong Kong in China. And, shouts to the people at Spalding who are getting involved with that trip. So, Leigh, can you palm a ball?
I can. I can
only palm the ball if it's like the perfect circumstances, and it's only with my right hand.
Yeah, well, that's true. I don't think I can do it with my left. I've never really tried, but yeah, thanks to Spalding, I'm going to have quite a few balls to give away when I'm in Hong Kong, May 17 to May 22. It's going to be awesome. There's 2,549 courts in Hong Kong.
You're going to have a ball to give away at every single one of those
courts?
Yes,
I'm going to average, trying to hit 510 courts per day while I'm there. So
it's easy stuff, honestly.
Easy stuff, but these balls, man. I have more details later in the show, but Spalding, if you are in Hong Kong or you're going to be in Hong Kong, let me know. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah. All right. Quick reminder, please hit that subscribe button if you guys are tuned in right now here on YouTube. If you guys are watching on Twitter or on Blue Sky, head on over to youtube.com/@basketballpassport to find the show there. Another quick reminder to hit us with emails whenever you have any questions that you want to hit us with. Nice, concise email for you to use, basketballpassportpod@gmail.com, where you could talk to us about anything whatsoever. Favorite basketball that we like to use. I'm a big Wilson Evolution guy. Those were always fun back when I was in high school. I also love the Spalding TF1000 from back in the day as well. That specific ball looks awesome. The thing I like about that ball, Leigh, is the different colored panels.
Yeah.
I wish that the NBA would utilize like a different colored panel from time to time to see the different backspins and all
well, that's
that.
right. Remember the old ABA ball, the red, white, and blue one,
Best ball ever made.
But, for the content that I create when I'm out on the road at these courts, outdoor courts, you get a beautiful blue sky and this orange and black ball just spinning in the air perfectly. Oh man, it looks beautiful.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
If I play with a multicolored panel ball, I have to, shoot with the laces. I can't shoot against the laces. It looks too weird.
Yeah.
Although if I don't have a multicolored panel ball, I sometimes would prefer to shoot against the laces. I actually preferred, seeing a straight line if I shoot the ball perfectly. It actually makes a straight line on the basketball.
Don't watch Ben Simmons warm up then. You will...
I cannot. Who's funny? Luka has funny backspin to his shot. It is way diagonal. Now it's consistent, but his backspin on his shot is actually pretty. It leans heavily to his right side,
right?
Which
I found. Check that out. Yeah. Ben Simmons, because he was here. The Clippers were here Friday night against the Hawks, and I was watching him warm up. And when he, when he gets the ball, he gets it like this, right?
Yeah.
So it's proper, and then he shoots it, and it spins like that,
like a cyclone,
like that. Yeah, that way. It's unbelievable. I don't know how he does it. but he does.
I remember I went at the gym I used to play at back when I lived in Southern California. There was a guy who would shoot a knuckleball.
Yeah, I've seen that a couple of times too. Yeah,
And
I
that
don't
is
know how.
I don't know how you do that.
No.
I remember asking him specifically, I forget the guy's name. It was a long time ago, but I was like, how? I don't understand the physics behind, because he didn't shoot. It wasn't an early shot. Like he's a lefty, so I think that kind of helped it look cool. Lefty
Yeah.
look better, unless you're Ben Simmons. But it looked fine, and then the ball would release off of his fingertips, and it just kind of float through the air.
I know. It's wild. I just don't know how you can do that physically. I don't know how you can get it not coming off your fingers at all.
Yeah.
Brendan Myers, shout out to Brendan Myers back in Sunbury. He used to be the same. He would shoot it, and it's like it's floating in the air.
Yeah.
And he wasn't a bad shooter. Like, he was actually pretty good. I was just like, oh man, how do you do that?
So
How do you release it without it?
Do you bring your hand off of the ball real fast?
Shoot with your palm? I don't know. Weird.
All right, so let's go ahead and dive on in though. Hunter Heffington. Hey Hunter, how you holding up? The Lakers beat the Phoenix Suns today 106-97. It was their first win, snapping a 4-game winning or losing streak for the Lakers. They improved to 41-25. The Phoenix Suns fall to 31-37. Leigh, before we even get into the rest of the game, and we'll break down some of some of the performances from this, namely Luka's, but it really jumps off of the screen how much everybody in Phoenix hates each other.
Yeah.
Like, it is astounding. I have never seen worse chemistry on a basketball team. And I just covered the Russell Westbrook Lakers a couple of years back.
Yeah. I mean, this game wasn't a blowout in a traditional sense. I mean, the Suns were there, but it was also, they weren't close either. It was one of those, like, this is going to be a double digits loss. They're just not, they haven't got it. And Luka, I saw a stat there. It's his 7th consecutive 30-point game against the Suns, the second longest of all time. That meme of him smiling at Devin Booker is, that's just going to haunt Devin Booker forever. But, a game like this, it's the classic drought breaker. The Lakers had lost 4 in a row, obviously, without LeBron there, who's out, and he's out for another, at least a couple more games here. And Luka just kind of said, okay, well, we need to get it back on the scoreboard here. Let's go and do it. And a very comfortable 33 points for him. Nearly got the triple-double, just fell a little bit short. But he obviously, if he really went for it, he could have got it. But it does say more, I think, about the Suns than the Lakers, because the Lakers, teams are coming for them now. And when they had LeBron and they were on that hot streak, it was like, oh man, they're a tough team. Without LeBron, it's like they should be able to gang up on Luka. They should make Austin Reaves and Dalton and those guys have to beat you. But the Suns just didn't apply any pressure, I thought. There was just, it was like the Lakers are just like, we're up double digits or so. Let's just keep it here. And there was nothing there from Phoenix. And there was a shot there of Kevin Durant seemingly somewhat agitated at Budenholzer. I think it was a little bit blown up, to be honest. I didn't think it was, too bad there. But again, with everything else that's gone on in Phoenix this season, it's just another sort of nail in the coffin there that the Mavericks, who feel like they haven't won forever, are still, I think, a game and a half up on them for 10th spot there in the West. So everyone in Phoenix needs this season to end and man, just flush it down the toilet, because it's been, after a solid start, the injuries came along, and since then, it's been a disaster.
Really weird thing in this game where in the first half, Bradley Beal was available and the Lakers quickly jumped out to a 20-point lead in the first quarter. Second half, Bradley Beal not available with hamstring tightness, and the Suns were a tangibly better team in the second half. It felt like we talk about, maybe the source of the frustration there. Bradley Beal just had a quote the other day talking about how he has his trade or no trade clause, and he's happy that he has it, and he's not going anywhere. He's going to keep on using it. And, it's the weirdest thing, Leigh. being a human being, it strikes me that like it's weird that somebody would be so happy and so content to stay in a situation that he's very clearly not wanted.
Yeah.
And now he gets paid really well to be in that situation, and apparently his family really likes Phoenix, Arizona, so that's all part of it too. But I don't know. I just they at one point benched him to make him that much more uncomfortable as they were trying to trade him. That didn't work. They brought him back into the starting lineup, and then you had whatever happened since then. This team has been just supremely disappointing all season. It's so weird to me that Bradley Beal is as content as he is to stick around in Phoenix, where he clearly isn't wanted. And it isn't like he's been a Phoenix Sun his whole life.
Yeah.
It'd be one thing if like he was in Washington, where his family had lived for 13 or whatever years while he was a Washington Wizard, and his family had developed roots there the way that they did. But now in Phoenix, somehow he has a closeness to the city or something like that would keep him around. I don't know if I've ever seen a situation like this. Normally, players just are like, just send me to a nice-ish city, give me a decent chance at winning a championship, and we can all kind of part ways here. In this case, he's like, nah, I'm happy that I have this, and I'm not going anywhere. Figure out how to be better around me.
Yeah, I mean, I guess a part of it is, once you move once and you settle in, you're like, well, hang on, I don't want to just pack up and move again. But we know that, obviously, once you hold the power there, and the Wizards knew what they were doing when they signed it, and so signed him with the no trade clause, and the Suns knew it as well. I mean, you are at the mercy of a player. Now, when you're Kobe or Dirk or Tim Duncan, you deserve a no trade clause, but Bradley Beal is obviously not in that category and in that standing. So, the Wizards shouldn't have done it in the first place. But again, it does come back though as well. Like, it's easy to sort of pick one guy, as you know, there with Westbrook, and say it's your fault, but it's what's the locker room like? What's the culture of the team like? And why is, you've got Beal who should be a perfect fit alongside those guys, because he can score off the dribble, he can handle the ball, he can shoot. He should be, this should work. And that's obviously why they went and got him, but it's not working. And sort of to blame him, I think, well, they fired Frank Vogel after one season. Monty Williams was there before that. Budenholzer, I know we've got him in here as as one of the headlines. I mean, are they going to fire Budenholzer after this season? Because if you've got Kevin Durant openly kind of, hostile there with him, it's clearly not working. They're not going to make the play in at all, and then the playoffs. And even if they somehow did, they'll get destroyed, I think, by the Thunder in the first round there. So I think it's more to do with, the culture around from top to bottom since Ishbia has come in. He's been a sort of classic owner of like, right, I own a team, trade, do this, do that. And there's not been that real foresight or forethought to what's going to happen. It's a bit like when Prokhorov came into Brooklyn there, just like, the impatience of an owner to get something done, and it blows up in their face. And now you have you have the scapegoat there in Beal, and whether he's injured or not, who knows? But I think it goes a lot deeper, their problems, than just him and his no trade clause. And again, I'm sure if they'd found the right situation for him, or an appealing situation for him at the deadline, he would have been happy to get out of there. But that possibly didn't present. And so they decided to sort of stick with what they had. They got rid of Nurkic. He was another one that Budenholzer had in the doghouse there. They're trying, to sort of get out of their own way, but I just don't think they can. And again, you saw it in just a performance like that today against a team like the Lakers, who were somewhat desperate but beatable, and the Suns really didn't even get close to them.
Yeah, the Lakers playing this one without LeBron, like you mentioned, without Rui Hachimura. They finally did get Jackson Hayes back, and Dorian Finney-Smith re-entered the rotation a couple of games ago from after he's been dealing with an ankle thing all year, apparently. And yeah, like you said, the Lakers won this one comfortably, and Phoenix never really kind of factored into this in a very serious way. And now they did come in. They did get the game to single digits in the fourth quarter with a few or a couple minutes to go in the game. But then Dorian hit a 3-pointer to push the lead back up to 11. I think he had another tip in to get the game back to 13 or so, and then the Lakers just kind of cruised from there, wind up winning by 11. Bradley Beal this year he's on the books for $50.2 million. Next year he's on the books for $53.6 million. And then in 26-27, he has a player option. So it wasn't not just the no trade clause, Leigh, but the player option as well on this one.
Yeah.
For $57.1 million. Something tells me I think he'll probably be picking up that player option in a couple of years too. Just astoundingly terrible contract for everybody but Bradley Beal. Bradley Beal loving the deal.
I remember at the time when the Wizards did it, it was like they almost just had to do it just because they wanted to keep like show her, look, we want to pay a guy a super max, and it's like, okay, I mean,
get to the salary floor.
Yeah. So anyway, I think this Suns team needs the season to end as quickly as possible and move on, because it was not a very inspiring Sunday afternoon ABC game where, it was fun to watch Luka. I mean, just strolling around to get his 30 again, tormenting Booker some more. But you wanted to see a little bit more fight there from the Suns, and it just didn't come there. You mentioned it got to single digits, and that's statistically true, but not in the sense of like, the Lakers are going to struggle here. I mean, I think JJ caught a timeout late there when it got to about, I think they hit 2 baskets in a row, Phoenix. But that was almost like if they hadn't lost 4 in a row, there's no way he would have called a timeout then. It was like, we'll close it out. But when you are a little more anxious for a win, you don't want to take any chances. But it really wasn't needed this afternoon.
Yeah, it was needed for Budenholzer. And I don't think, I don't think they'll fire Bud after this season, because they already have Monty on the books, I believe.
Well, I think Monty's now on the Pistons books, because remember he signed that absurd contract with the Pistons. He'll be on the Pistons books.
I thought he was getting paid by both. Okay, so
no, I think
all right,
yeah.
But they do have Frank Vogel on the books, and then they would have Budenholzer on the books, and he's actually fairly expensive. And then whoever they sign, if they fire Budenholzer, they would have that coach on the books as well. So I don't know if Ishbia would be okay with having 3 head coaches' salaries on the books heading into next season, as
no
well
cap
as Bradley
space.
Beal. And no draft picks. Other than that, how's the play, Mrs. Lincoln? And it was just it's a absolutely brutal spot. I would be shocked, to be completely honest, if Kevin Durant was on Phoenix after the summer.
Yeah,
it would absolutely blow me away if they decided to run this back. Ishbia apparently is on the record to ESPN saying that things are going to be very, very different heading into next year. In what ways, we don't necessarily know. Is James Jones going to get the hook?
Yeah.
Is Ishbia willing to fire James Jones for merely carrying out his orders and his wishes? Happens all the time.
He's probably got 4 years and $45 million on his contract too.
Right. So I don't know what happens there with Phoenix. I will say this: I'm going to stand up for my dude Vogel, because he got fired for not being able to make this Phoenix roster work last year, for not being able to really seriously factor into the championship conversation. And then they fire him and they bring in Budenholzer and promptly get worse while having fairly okay health all the way around. And I will say, I think Frank Vogel is one of the more underrated coaches in the sport, because the Lakers won a championship with him, sandbagged his rosters, and then fired him for not being able to make those rosters work. Yeah. They hired Darvin Ham, who was clearly a worse coach than Frank Vogel. And then he goes to Phoenix to be the head coach over that bad situation. And they fire him for not being able to make a bad situation work, and bring in Budenholzer, who makes that situation worse because he's never cared about defense as a head coach. And now here we are having this conversation about Budenholzer. One way they could avoid having multiple head coaches or
bring Frank back next season.
Bring Frank back, baby. Frank Vogel.
Well, that's right. Frank was a good defensive coach certainly in Indiana in his first stint there. Didn't really work out for him in Orlando. Completely different roster then. But yeah, Budenholzer as an offensive coach and Vogel as the defensive coach, and see if they can get something to figure it out. Because I think as well. I think Vogel was in a very tough spot there with the Lakers because he did win the championship, and didn't they only sign him to a 1-year extension after that championship?
Winning a championship,
yeah, which is
Crazy.
a sign of like, don't get too comfortable there. We need a championship every season. But
the big thing there was that when they hired Vogel, the process that the Lakers took to hiring Vogel was a joke, because initially they had offered the gig to Ty Lue, but then completely underwhelmed him with the contract offer. Also wanted to force Lue to employ certain assistant coaches, namely Jason Kidd, who would essentially be a spy back to the front office. Lue said he didn't want anything to do with either the contract numbers that they were offering, nor with Jason Kidd, as being a go-between between the coaching staff and the front office. They also were talking to Monty Williams, but he was sick of waiting for the Lakers, so he winds up taking the Phoenix job instead. They frankly wanted Jason Kidd to be the head coach, but actually we at Silver Screen and Roll wrote about Jason Kidd's history, not just in Brooklyn and not just in Milwaukee, but also his literal criminal record that he had going on there. And we wrote about it. I wrote about it there while I was still at Silver Screen and Roll. It got asked about at a press conference, and the Lakers from that point on were kind of iffy about hiring him as their head coach, but they did make him the highest paid assistant coach in the league. And the thought there was, well, they hired Frank Vogel, who would clearly be kind of a lame duck coach, and they paid Jason Kidd so well to be like I wouldn't be surprised if his terms on his contract was Jason Kidd, future interim coach of the Los Angeles Lakers. That didn't wind up playing out that way. Frank Vogel messed around and won a championship. Jason Kidd winds up taking the Mavericks gig after helping the Lakers win that championship, and Vogel gets the 1-year contract extension to avoid being an actual lame duck candidate for the Lakers in that second to last season. Wasn't able to make the Russell Westbrook situation work. I don't think anybody could have, as evidenced by the next coach not also. Darvin Ham came in, and it got worse with Russell Westbrook while he was still there. And then Vogel gets hired by Ishbia. I thought did a fine job. There were obviously some issues there. I think a central problem with the Phoenix Suns is that Devin Booker and Kevin Durant don't want to run pick and roll together. They just don't. They don't benefit from each other's presence on a basketball court at all. And if Budenholzer can't get those guys to do that, then you may as well split them up and bring in somebody who will benefit from Devin Booker probably isn't going anywhere. So somebody who will help Devin Booker and who Booker can help. But between the Beal contract and between Kevin Durant and Devin Booker's weird chemistry or lack thereof, and just an overall culture that is completely lacking in give a bleep, the Suns are the most depressing situation in the sport.
Yeah, I mean, they brought Tyus Jones in for that reason, to help sort of be a point guard and run the offense. And, because that's what you want. You don't need a high, you don't need a superstar. You just need someone who can just put them in to position. I mean, Chris Paul would have been perfect in that situation there, just to get them in their offensive sets. You saw what he's done with the Spurs this season for the most part there with Wembanyama. But yeah, I think, again, I think it starts at the top though, and I think you have to look at an owner who's kind of impatient and making these decisions sort of without really sitting down. Because when they hired Budenholzer as well, it seemed like they fired Vogel and hired Budenholzer the next day. I mean, it probably wasn't quite that quick, but it felt like they didn't really, canvass a whole big group of coaches. It was just sort of like, get another retread in here. I mean, Budenholzer and Vogel have a very similar sort of reputation there. Both won a championship. Both have their weaknesses, but it was kind of like,
it's like they're different flavors of the same coach.
Oh, exactly. So, you could have shown a little bit more due diligence in doing a little bit more research and work and in interviewing some other candidates. But it didn't seem like that's what happened. So now to see the Suns like this, and I said on one of our early shows when Phoenix were here in Atlanta, and they were winning, and the Hawks came back and won that game. And so after the game in the locker room, most of the time when there's a loss, it's a little bit of a, there's a little bit of a sort of heavier feeling in the locker room. Not too much. I mean, the guys in the NBA don't get they don't start crying or anything after a loss, but it is a slightly different vibe. But this one was a very weird vibe where it was like, oh, what's going on? So we'll see there. But man, for a season that did sort of hold promise, it's been a disaster there. And again, like the Mavs, who haven't won, it seems like since December, are still holding on to that 10th spot in the Western Conference.
Yeah, and I'm not even positive the Mavs want that 10 spot. I think they want to tank to get into the lottery to see if they can improve their roster for next year. So we'll kind of see what comes out of that entire situation as well. My last thing here on Ishbia, and I think it's a factor that I don't think enough people have brought to the forefront here, but Ishbia and Dan Gilbert have a very real and very contentious rivalry in the businesses that they both come from. And the fact that Dan Gilbert is stewarding this Cavs miracle season where they just had a 16-game winning streak. It was just snapped by the Orlando Magic. But it was the second 15-game winning streak or better that the Cavs have had this year, maybe even third.
Well, they've had three in the double digits. Yeah, I think 12, 15, and 16, I think it is.
Right. And so I kind of feel like, because that interview that Ishbia gave to ESPN where he's like, we're still going for it. I only know one speed. I only know one way to do this. I really think that has a lot to do with the fact that the Cavs might mess around and win a championship this year. And given the very real animosity between Ishbia and Dan Gilbert that goes both ways, but Gilbert's sitting on top of the world right now like, this is great.
Yeah,
I'm doing just as well without LeBron James as I was without him. And LeBron's been toiling in mediocrity for most of his time in LA during regular seasons. So I get to enjoy that aspect of this. I get to enjoy the Ishbia aspect of all this. And I really think it's driving Ishbia so insane that he is incapable of making decent decisions for his basketball team.
Well, I think, again, when you're a billionaire, you've gotten to that point by just kind of writing the rules as you see fit and people bend to your will. But then when you get to a situation like this, it's not just like you can say, all right, well, I'm going to throw more money at the situation or anything like that. You have to find, a locker room that works. I mean, look at the way the Cavs played. Now, I don't know how they lost to the Magic actually today. I know Evan Mobley didn't play for Cleveland there, but they were up double digits. They were looking very, very comfortable. And then the Magic came back late and pinched it. But for the most part, I know we've talked about this a lot this season, that Cavs team, the vibes look incredible. It's a classic Kenny Atkinson team. Everyone's playing well. Great representation at the All-Star weekend, and deservingly Eastern Conference favorites right now over the Celtics, who are the defending champion. But everything else for the Cavs has been really, really good this season. And I mean, that was one of the things when LeBron was there. Him and Dan Gilbert did not get along either.
No.
But in spite of that, in spite of that, because of LeBron's brilliance, they were able to do well and win the championship and make the finals. But now there's a completely different feel about that team. They're fun to watch. They get along with each other seemingly, and they're very well coached. And Kenny Atkinson's done an incredible job. I think I think it's him or Dagnall for Coach of the Year. I'd probably lean towards Kenny Atkinson, because I don't think anyone saw this sort of dominance from Cleveland.
I hope it is one of those two coaches, because they have been far and away the two best teams in the NBA so far this year. And we always do these things with coaches, because I've started to hear like JJ Redick should be in that conversation too.
Yeah.
And I will grant that JJ has coached a very weird season and done far exceeded expectations as a rookie coach, not just rookie NBA head coach, but rookie coach, with I'll say unproven assistant coaching staff that he was working with, because the Lakers kind of struggled to find assistant coaches who were willing to work with JJ Redick being a rookie head coach and given the way that the Lakers have been cycling through head coaches, assistant coaches have been reluctant to go there. All that said, I think we completely misunderstand the dynamics that go into coaching the best teams in the NBA and having those kinds of expectations night in, night out of we are supposed to win this game. What happens if we don't win it? What happens if we win it ugly even? And the way that Atkinson has been coaching the Cavs this year and the way that Dagnall coaches the Thunder every year, like I hope that we finally, because remember for a long time, Greg Popovich and Phil Jackson like couldn't win coaches of the year awards. I think they have like a total of 3 combined between the two of them. And it's just, it just really speaks to how dumb the award has become.
Yeah.
And then there was also the coach of the year curse.
Yeah.
And the reason that like coaches who won coach of the year every year were cursed was because they did the best they could with normally pretty bad rosters.
Yeah.
And then that bad roster, like, regresses to the mean the following year, and that coach gets blamed for it.
Yeah.
And like, I hope that we really, we see a bit of a shift here in understanding the expectations that come with coaching great rosters.
Yeah.
I understand that it's 2 different processes that go into coaching a mediocre team and getting everything that you can from it. And then also getting everything that you can from a really, really good team as well. Like those are 2 different experiences. But what we've seen from those 2 coaches this year has been nothing short of spectacular. And I hope one of those 2 guys get rewarded at the end of the season.
Yeah. Oh, no question. I mean, I think JJ has done, a good job, but not better than what Dagnall and Kenny Atkinson have done. And I think, again, when you look at their records, I think that has to sort of weigh into it as well. I mean, the Cavs won't win 70, but theoretically they still could, especially if they go on another one of their double-digit winning streaks.
Yeah.
But they should both win 65 plus. And that'll be an incredible achievement for both of them. And we've seen those 2 games. It's been great. I enjoy it. I don't care. I mean, I like seeing the Lakers and the Knicks and the big teams. I love it, but I also don't feel less enjoyment when I see 2 great teams, whether they're from Oklahoma City and Cleveland, playing off, because I think they've been really, really fun to watch, both of them this season.
Yeah. The only thing potentially taking a little bit away from the OKC experience has been the grifting, though. Like here's how I feel about it, because we just had we've had several coaches over the course of the season coach against the Thunder and then go on a rant about how difficult it is to coach against the Thunder, specifically because you have a defense that plays its ass off, and their approach basically is to be so physical and dare referees to call every single foul, knowing that the referee will not only will they not be able to call every single foul that they commit, but they'll also start letting things go because that's just the way that they play basketball. So you get a defense that's allowed to play super physically, and then you have an offense headed up by Shai Gilgeous-Alexander that gets an insane whistle, gets a great whistle, gets to the free throw line a ton. Now, he does spend a ton of time in the paint, and he is just an outright really good basketball player, and that I hope that doesn't get lost in this conversation as well. But JB Bickerstaff, came out most recently and said, now his issue was more with the technical fouls and, one that was called on them and then not, I believe, called on OKC. But I think it all kind of falls under the same conversation. My stance on this is basically that I think Shai is like too good to foul grift, just like I thought that James Harden was too good to foul grift. I understand somebody like Austin Reaves foul grifting because he's a 6'4", 6'5" white guy who isn't otherworldly athletic, and he needs to get every advantage that he kind of has to. I think Luka is too good to foul grift the way that he does as well. But where do you fall on SGA's foul merchantry?
Yeah, I point this back to the referees falling for it. And remember last season when the NBA, unofficially said, all right, stop calling fouls, and all of a sudden scores dropped as well because we were seeing 150 to 152 and stuff like that. And that's what it comes down to for me is like There are times when you catch a guy in the air and he's up and you jump into him and fine, they're going to call that, when there's clear body contact. But those sort of leaning, falling away, and look, there's no question to me that Harden at his worst would do that sort of, where he'd pull the arms underneath and throw them up into you. That's the worst. Shai doesn't really do that. Shai more embellishes contact at times, but he gets a ton of contact as well. I mean, he's leading the league in makes and attempts, and he's shooting 90% from the field. Like he's from the line. He's got the ball in his hands a lot. He's the leading scorer in the league. So he's figured out a way to score. There is definitely some embellishment. I think it's being a little overblown because I believe it's more to do with the fact that the Thunder have been so good as well. So you naturally attract that attention of like, hey, how are they doing it? Then you're like, well, see, he's out there trying to con the refs. But again, to me. And it's still frustrating because I think refereeing is very difficult. And I do have an enormous amount of respect for the refs because it's so hard. There are so many plays you cannot possibly tell who touches a ball last when those...
They're moving so fast.
Exactly. And what,
so fast.
Whenever there's contact doesn't automatically mean there's a foul. You have to allow for for contact, even on the hands as well. Now, what I would do though as well... I would direct the referees to be like, when you see those heads, jolting back like that, take it from benefit of the doubt goes to the player with the ball and remove it and put it on the player without the ball. Because to me, when the head goes back, that is a sign of trying to get the call, rather than anything that's really happening. But that's what the guys are waiting for the whistle. They don't hear it. So then they do something to embellish. And that's when it's like, well, he must, look at him, look at how he's throwing his head back there. And one person who's been criticized heavily in the past is Trae Young. People have said he's that, and he's no question he's done that at times. This season, though, I've noticed he doesn't do it as much, and when he does try, he doesn't get away with it as much. And there are times where Trae's leading the league in assists, but also turnovers. And part of the reason I think he's leading him in turnovers is because he jumps up, waits for the whistle, doesn't get it. Then he realizes that he's in the air and he's got to make a pass or throw it away, and he throws it away. So that's what I think it comes down to as well, is like Shai hasn't really had this reputation in the past that he's got right now for it. So they should apply that same sort of philosophy of like when he's going inside, and I hate it from both sides when the arms get locked up and you don't know who's locking up who, but someone locks up the arm and says, look, he's doing that. So then they decide, to exaggerate what's happening. And the refs should just say, you know what, let's not call some of these rather than call them as it aids the player with the ball, in this case, Shai, and instead say, unless we see real clear, undeniable contact, it's play on, because it's frustrating for everybody and it is a blight on the game when you see it. And again, it's very, very difficult sometimes because guys do get bumped and they do, Shai's got a herky-jerky game anyway, like his ability to lose his defenders is incredible. He's got great handles, he gets inside, he's got the mid-range, he's got the step back. Like he's very, very hard to guard at the best of times. So we don't need extra help there when he's doing it. He's somewhat guilty. The defenses, I'm sure, are hitting him all game long. But again, it also comes back to the referees of like, get that whistle out of your mouth a couple of times and see if it makes a change, because I don't think both parties are wrong, but I also don't think both parties are right. I think it's like, I can understand JB Bickerstaff, and again, you mentioned the tech fouls. That was a physical game there. But when Shai's got the ball and dudes are hitting him, they've got to call it fairly as well there. Maybe he wouldn't need to feel the need to embellish if he got some of those other calls when, again, when you're the leading scorer and you've shown an ability to get any shot you want this season, teams come at you a lot harder.
I have two kind of central issues with refereeing now. One of them, it came up in the Lakers game today, and I think there was a really interesting video. It was kind of funny in the moment because it was a bunch of referees, especially older referees, sitting around and talking about how difficult it is to referee in the NBA. And they were also kind of complaining about review, and they were complaining about challenges, coaches' challenges and stuff like that. And I initially took it to be, oh, well, these guys who don't normally face too much public accountability, they face private accountability. I think NBA fans don't quite understand what's on the line if a referee has a bad game. But like, this union of referees doesn't normally face too much public accountability. And so with a coach being able to say, no, let's go on back, let's review that call, that's public accountability that referees haven't typically faced too much over the years, and they haven't really liked it. But a really interesting point was made over the course of the show by an older referee. I forget which one it was, but he said that younger referees are coming in and they are relying on review and they're relying on challenges and therefore not paying as much attention to some of the detail of the game and missing some blatant calls that teams shouldn't have to challenge and are thus losing challenges earlier in the game because they have to challenge this call and now can only make one more challenge for the rest of the game when they shouldn't have had to waste it on that play in the first place. And we saw it come up in this game, and I've noticed it a lot since that video. There was a play in this Lakers Phoenix game that even Richard Jefferson's like, there's 3 of you on the court. One, Luka gets stripped. So the ball didn't just fall out of his hands. So that player, if nobody else touches it, it's off that player. Or after Luka got stripped, I think Dunn or Iguodaro hit the ball like straight up, kind of reacted trying to catch it, and then the ball goes like straight up and it goes out of bounds by a lot. And nobody else was around it, like whoever it was who hit the ball. And Jefferson's like, you're sitting right there. You're looking at the play. What else are you looking for? It's clearly off of him. And JJ had already won one challenge there or earlier in the game.
Yeah. And
could have challenged that call, but opted not to, because even if he gets that right, he loses his challenge for the rest of the game. Yeah. And there are going to be more important plays that he wouldn't potentially need a challenge later in the game. And that's one thing, is that like, stop relying on challenge or review to get calls right. Pay closer attention if you're one of these younger referees and be able to make better calls on your own. 2, like you're talking about with the embellishments and stuff like that, use some common sense. If you see Joel Embiid get knocked over by a point guard in the same way he would if he was hit by a semi truck, like maybe factor into into your call there who was knocking him over. Yeah, because come on, if you see a player like the way that they whip their head back, they would have had to just been in a car accident. Like they look like crash test dummies when they get hit sometimes. And ask yourself, do you think he was actually hit hard enough to go flying like some of these Marvel characters do in their battle scenes when they get hit by like Thor's hammer?
Yeah,
probably not. So that like the common sense aspect of it too. And then like 2A is the discrepancy between what it takes for a bigger player to get a call and a smaller player to get a call. And I think that's kind of the crux of the issue here with SGA specifically, is SGA goes through the key, gets like tapped on the elbow, flails around a little bit, and then gets the call. Whereas Jokic, every time I see him, has a brand new scar.
Yeah.
And he isn't getting necessarily the same benefit of the calls. Remember when Shaq was a Laker, or LeBron gets the same kind of situation where you have to foul him to have any chance at stopping him from getting to the basket. Yeah. But it's no less, if it's more of a foul than sometimes Shai is dealing with, and they aren't getting that benefit of the call. So
Shaq definitely, I remember, I mean, guys would just jump on him, but it was like, well, you're big, you can handle it, but that shouldn't be the way it is.
So those are the issues. And I don't think, I do think Shai understands the system and benefits from it. I don't think he's anywhere near as egregious as Harden was back in the day, or Embiid is currently.
Yeah.
Like, I think I wish he wouldn't do it at all. And to your point, if referees just stopped calling it, it wouldn't happen anymore. But I think the NBPA I think spoke up when referees stopped giving him that calls.
Yeah.
And I think the league also wants these inflated personal stats, and that's how they're going to get people to tune in to all 82 games, because you never know when SGA is going to go for 55 points on 37 free throws. Even though that's just not a very fun viewing experience. If I'm going to watch Shai score 55 points, I want to see him score 55 points on the
Ethical
litany
scoring
of shots that he can actually hit.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, not to pile on James Harden, but he was unwatchable in his prime.
Yeah. Yeah. Also, can we stop? Like, anytime somebody does anything good, the conversation is immediately, is this player better than Kobe?
Yeah.
Chances are no. like maybe statistically and according to the advanced analytics, no. But we did this with like Harden. It was like, it's because James Harden,
Yeah.
he's more efficient than Kobe. Come on. All right. We'll go ahead and move on though to Thibs v. Bridges, as potentially seen in the Superior Court there in the greater New York area. Bridges came out and said publicly that he spoke to Tom Thibodeau and said, "Coach, you're playing us starters too much. We need to scale it back. We need to have something left in the tank going into the postseason. This is getting ridiculous." He said this to the media, and everybody's like, "Oh, cool. All right. They're on the same page. That's good to see." Then Tom Thibodeau was asked about it, and he first said, "Who's Mikal Bridges? I don't know who that guy is." And then also took issue with the general take there that he's playing his guys too much.
Yeah.
Which speaks to the possibility that he and his starters aren't on the same page, or at least one of his starters aren't on the same page. It's clear he plays his starters too much. His teams always break down. They can't go to that extra gear in the postseason because they play that way all regular season anyway, and he falls short of postseason expectations. What did you make of the entire situation?
Yeah, well, this is a bit of a deja vu, really, for a Thibs team that, guys are just exhausted. And he got into it with Jason Hart there last night against the Warriors as well, where they seem to have a fairly intense sort of shouting match. And Richard Jefferson on the broadcast said, "Hey, man, this is all part of it." And you hear that all the time as well. And there is some truth to that. But again, I think I go back to last season against the Pacers, Game 7 at home in New York, and they just ran out of bodies and they ran out of gas. I mean, that's why you want that regular season home record, so you can have a Game 7 at home, and they just ran out of bodies. Now, Jalen Brunson, who's been great, he's out for at least another week or two here. He probably wouldn't be 100% healthy for at least, probably closer to 2 or 3. And I think Bridges is sort of saying the same thing. It's like, man, we're gassed out here. And Thibs is sort of like, no, you're not. And it's like, well, I mean, we are.
Apparently, you know my body better.
Yeah. And so, and they've lost 4 of their last 6. They've got a fairly soft schedule coming up here. They should be able to get back on track. But again, I think it's more about the big picture of like, is Thibs actually going down that same path that he's been down before, where you get to the playoffs and the guys just haven't got the legs in them for a long playoff run. They might get out of the first round, but ultimately I think that's where he has to sort of listen to his players a little more, because it's been a great season. It's been a really fun season watching the Knicks. And as I said before, I prefer it when the Knicks are like, hey man, they're the big evil team. Everyone's trying to knock them off. But their stretch run home here, I mean, like I say, they got the Heat tomorrow night. Okay, that one, the Heat need a win, but the Knicks should win that. Then they got the Spurs, Hornets, Wizards, Mavs. So a couple at home, couple on the road there. So they should be able to get back on track. But if they drop any of those 4 or 5 there, that could be a sort of an alarm bell here for the Knicks. They're obviously going to finish in the top 4. They're going to, they should be a good team in the playoffs if they can get healthy, as is the caveat for everybody. They're very unlikely to not have home court in that first round, no matter what happens from here. But this is almost like an even more of a sign for Thibs. Like, if you're locked into 4 or 3, then take the opportunity to listen to your players a little more and hear what they're saying, because you just don't want to be in that situation where, again, you get to the playoffs and then you run into a team and you're down bodies. And even if their bodies are playing, if they're not 100%, then the same situation is going to play out.
Yeah, it's actually insane that, because with the Bulls, nobody ever complained, right? Rose never complained. No one never complained. Deng never complained. That was a very tough team, and they all just kind of ran with the culture that was laid by the coach, and they all went forward that way. Minnesota, like there was some tension there, I think. Younger
definitely
team
with Jimmy Butler in the end there, and he came from the Bulls where he sort of saw it for the first time, and he was like, "Oh, hang on a minute, I think this is not the right approach."
Yeah, and then now this is the first time where now multiple starters who are coming out and saying, "No, come on, let's be smarter about this."
The Bulls were young. The Bulls were young as well, and so it was like, well, we should be able to handle this, And Thibs was that was his first coaching job, so it was like, all right, he drives them a bit harder, but they're young. Noah was still young, and Rose was young, and Deng, and Booz was a little bit older, but they were like, fine, your starters should play the most minutes, but now with a lot more of a sample size to deal with, a lot more evidence, it's like, Thibs, I think you guys just run out of gas, and you have to change that.
Well, the part that I find insane is that he is fighting back against this, even though the much larger sample size would indicate that this is a really dumb way to coach. Like, I understand that he trusts his core guys more, and I know older coaches tend to have much shorter rotations and stuff like that, but if you have been now in the NBA long enough to hopefully learn some lessons and refuse now to learn those lessons, and then B, are having your best players come to you and say, "Coach, we need to dial it back a little bit so that we have some gas left over for the playoffs," and you're still sitting there calling everybody else who feels this way idiots.
Yeah.
Like, that's a you problem, Thibs. And I would look, it's tough because the Knicks have obviously been a very good team while Thibs has been there. And it's tough to fire a head coach, while things are going as well as they have been under him, for the Knicks. But if he absolutely is against learning anything as a head coach in the NBA, and this is just who he is, 3 stop, and now in his 3rd stop, I think I'd fire him after this season. If they go through the same exact thing here and they cash out early-ish in the postseason, 2nd round or whatever, I think you do have to seriously consider firing him after the season.
Yeah, I mean, because I think there is now enough sort of evidence to say that he doesn't learn his lesson. I mean, those Bulls teams were very, very tough. Great defensive teams, and they ran into LeBron, and that was kind of like, well, you ran into LeBron. Minnesota, they made the playoffs, remember, but then lost in 5 to the Rockets, and then he didn't even see the next season out. And again, you sort of put it down to like, well, that was their first time in the playoffs, so whatever. But now it's like, I think the alarm bells are starting to go off, because it's like you need to, manage their minutes a lot better than you do, and you just can't drive the guys into the ground, So we'll see, because
also, if he gets fired, I'd be kind of curious to see if he gets another gig after this.
Yeah, Phoenix,
because again, same thing. Phoenix.
5 years and $65 million, right?
That would get Bradley Beal out of there.
Yeah,
Bradley Beal having to play 42 minutes a night.
Yeah,
that was all right. You know what? I'll rip up my no trade clause right now. I don't want to play for this guy anymore. All right, let's wrap up here with a preview of your upcoming trip to China.
Well, Hong Kong. We'll be there in Hong Kong from May 17 to May 22. Got a lot of activities lined up. got some charity events, got a couple of clinics lined up. And again, where is it? Here we are. Put it up this way. Huge thanks to Spalding, who have stepped up big time to the plate and have sent out some balls already. So I will be donating some of these. I'll be leaving them for some of the kids, hosting the clinics, and try to have a few fun events of just sort of like, hey, I'm here. Come and find me, and I'll give you a beautiful Spalding EuroLeague style ball. It might not have the EuroLeague branding on it, but it will definitely be this type of ball. And yeah, so huge shout out there to Spalding, everyone there who's come along and is going to be supporting this journey and this trip. And I'll have more information on Friday's show as well, where we do a little bit more sort of look around the world as well, because there's been some news. We didn't have our show on Friday, but there's been some news about what's happening in Australia in the summer as well, with the Pelicans going down. So we'll talk about that. But overall, very, very excited for this trip out there to Hong Kong. It looks like it's one of the most stunningly bright and vivacious cities in the world. I've never been there before. Real excited. There's some amazing courts out there. And if you want to be a part of it, send us a message here, basketballpassportpod@gmail.com, or any of my socials at Leigh Ellis on pretty much all of them there, Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. So, send me a message if you want some more details, and I'll let you know about it.
I can't wait to hear more about it on Friday. Apologies, everybody, for missing this Friday's episode. Had some stuff here going on with my. What do we do with immediate families? It's not like my wife and kids. It's my previous immediate family, my like brothers. So I don't know.
Yeah.
What do we call
family?
that?
Family.
Yeah. Anyway.
It can. Yeah.
But yeah, no apologies though, and we will stay on schedule here for the remainder of the season and going into the postseason. And I can't wait to hear more about that trip on this upcoming Friday's episode. So until then, and until the next time you guys hear from us, I'm Anthony Irwin. That was Leigh Ellis. This has been Basketball Passport. Hit us with an email if you want to hit us with an email. Hit that subscribe button, hit that rate button, and then hit that review button as well. And then hit the share button. That share button really helps us a ton. Let people know about what we're doing here on the show if you've enjoyed it. And until the next time you guys hear from us, have a good weekend, everybody. Safe travels.